Chapter 14. James and Jessie returned in the early evening, instantly eager to tell Mac of their success. "We found droppings. Don't know whether they were deer or sheep, but they were quite fresh," James said, standing by the sentry tower, a mug of hot water in his hand. "And 2 or 3 fields of wheat, just abandoned, mostly blown down and rotting." "Hopefully some might still germinate," Mac said. "Worth our while to gather it in." "Don't forget the vegetables," chimed in Jessie. "Yeah, fields with the remains of cabbages and Brussels sprouts," James confirmed. "Mostly useless. Eaten by something, rabbits, I suppose. Still, worth a look for scavenging." "Any spuds?" "Didn't see any." Mac sighed. "Blast. We really could use potatoes for planting." "We've done well, Mac," James said brightly. "Been in a dozen or so farmhouses. It's a great idea you had. Why didn't Ricky ever think of it?" "There's too much to carry back on foot. Cans of food, coal." "Why didn't Ricky ever think of it?" "There's too much to carry back on foot. Cans of food, coal, bottled gas, some gun cabinets, but all locked up." "That's great. We can go back there with the Land Rover and some tools." "Maybe we'll find the keys," offered Jessie, still excited by their success. "Yeah, maybe. We'll send enough people for a thorough search." "What else, James?" "Absolutely heaps. Outhouses full of tools, seeds, fertilizer, you name it." "Any livestock?" "No, nothing living, except rabbits and pigeons." "And crows," Jessie corrected. "Every hen house has been shredded by foxes. Carcasses of sheep and cows in the field. We spotted a cat at one farm, but couldn't get hold of it. I'd like to try and tempt it with some food when we go back. Get rid of those damn mice." "Any vehicles?" "Maybe petrol we could siphon. Plenty of cars, Land Rovers, and tractors. Some quad bikes. And some of those big tanks for diesel." "But no sign of people," Jessie said wistfully. "It doesn't look like anyone's been there since the death. I'd guess the nearest settlement is miles away, maybe even Lancester itself." "You've done brilliantly, both of you. Go and get some grub. We'll plan how to collect it after tea once Tomo and Ellen get back." "They're not back yet." "No, but there's still an hour of daylight left." The 3 returned to the dining room where dinner was ending. "Don't go away, everyone," Mac asked. "James and Jessie have something to tell us." "Oh," cooed Julie. "Is it?" "Nothing like that," Jessie said quickly. "It's about what we found at the farms we searched today." She gave a summary, focusing on which finds were the most urgent to bring back to the manor house. "Sounds like a lot more work for us all," grumbled Colin. Mac heard comments from some of the women agreeing with him, including Pet. Out of the corner of his eye, Mac noticed Pascal's head turned towards him. Yes, it will be," he said to the room. "And if we all pull together, it will make it much easier. Many hands make light work, you know." Long after dark, there was no sign of Tomo and Ellen. Mac moved forwards his sentry duty and stayed on watch. Lenny, his watch buddy that night, was rolling out his sleeping bag in the back of the tower. After noting the Danes next door, soon after they'd arrived at the manor house, Ricky had organised nightly sentry duty. 2 people had to stay in the tower, and they'd break up the night into watches where one would stay awake while the other slept. Ricky had told them it was an army thing. One sentry could fall asleep or be shot, and then who would sound the alarm? "Do we need sentry duty any more, Mac?" Lenny asked. "You know, now that we've got a truce with the Danes." "Probably not," Mac replied. "In fact, definitely not. I hadn't thought about it." He pondered the situation while Lenny took off his boots and prepared to go to sleep. "We'll stay on duty tonight, though, because Tomo and Ellen are still not back." "All right, Mac," Lenny said. "What do you think has gone wrong?" I wish I knew. I'm really hoping they might just have pushed on too far, got benighted, and found somewhere warm to spend the night. Yeah, hope so. All right if I get some Zeds? Sure. Tell you what, I'm going to light the brazier so that there's some light and sound, just in case they are somewhere nearby. As the night passed, Mac worried something worse had happened. Scenarios ran through his mind. They might have come too close to someone's farm and been taken prisoner. Or shot. One could have had an accident or fallen in a river. He only had a rough idea where they had gone. He supposed they'd have to go and search tomorrow, but realistically, they could search for days and not even be in the right areas. After what he estimated was 2 hours, he switched with Lenny and tried to sleep. After an hour, something woke him, something too noisy to allow him back to sleep. First he thought his ears were playing tricks on him. He struggled to identify the sound over the crackling of firewood in the brazier. He sat up. No, he wasn't mistaken. There it was again. The unmistakable baaing of sheep. Mac rushed to the tower's window. "You can hear that, can't you?" he asked Lenny. "Sounds like sheep. Can't see anything yet." "Hey, who's in the tower?" called out Tomo from the darkness. The sheep took all 4 of them to drag through the gate. They'd all been roped around the necks. By the time they were inside the compound, most of the house had come downstairs to see. Men and women in pyjamas and dressing gowns were milling about, touching and petting the animals. Tomo and Ellen were surrounded, being high-fived and hugged. "How did you get them all back?" "We didn't know what else to do," Ellen said. "We tied ropes around their necks and led them like dogs on leads." "But not as easily as dogs," Tomo laughed. "You two are awesome. We're going to eat like kings." Mac wandered over to Tomo and they shared a grin. "I couldn't think of anyone who'd volunteer to join your search party." "Ha! I only talked the sheep into coming by promising you wouldn't shag them." They laughed. Ellen put her arms around Tomo's neck and kissed him long and hard. Over her shoulder, Tomo gave Mac a knowing wink. They'd found the sheep towards the end of the day and had seriously thought about staying there overnight. Either that or leaving them and coming back with help. "But we were so excited, Mac," Ellen interjected. "We just had to bring some back tonight." "You were anyway," retorted Tomo. "So were you, Mr. Cool. Don't try to deny it." "Anyway, we left most of them and just brought these few back. It was all we could manage. And anyway, they kept running off." "You mean there are more?" Mac gasped. "We counted another 15, Ellen said proudly. 15? What a find." "They're not in great shape, Mac. There were quite a few dead ones too. They'd become trapped in a few fields. That's how we found them. They were all stuck. Have a good look at them before you get too carried away. Whatever shape they're in, they are a massive boon for us. It's a masterstroke bringing some back home tonight. Don't you go making light of what you've done today." Mac studied the nearest sheep, which was eating the overgrown lawn that surrounded the manor house. It was thin and limped with one foot. "I see what you mean. I suppose we must be prepared to lose a few. Do you think anyone knows about farming or vetting?" "Don't know. Maybe there'll be some books in those farms." "Do you think you could take some people tomorrow and bring the rest back?" "To tell you the truth, no. We only managed to bring these back because they were weak and slow. We started with 8, and the rest of them ran away. Really, we need to take the Land Rover and put the rest of them in a trailer." "There are trailers at the farm," Ellen added. "All right. We'll tackle that tomorrow," Max said. "Let's just leave them here grazing in the compound for tonight. They can't get out of here." "We'll have to put something up to stop them getting in the veggie garden," Mandeep piped up. "Yeah," Alex agreed. "I know where we've got some pallets and doors we can set up for now. Come and help me, will you?" Ali rolled over and spooned up against Mac. A beam of moonlight slipped between a chink in the curtains and illuminated the beam on her face. Everybody's so excited. Positive and hopeful too. They can't talk about anything else. Going on about lambs and how well we're going to be eating. I even heard Joan talking about knitting. Knitting? Mac rolled his eyes. No one's got the foggiest idea how to shear the things, let alone spin. I know, but it feels like we've turned the corner. Ali waved away Mac's protests. First the truce, and now the sheep. I know there's more to come to, and it's all down to you, Mac. She squeezed him so tightly he groaned. Chapter 15. We need a couple of volunteers to slaughter and butcher a sheep. Who wants to do that? Faces looked up from the breakfast table, some swapping quizzical glances, others wrinkling their noses. What are the other jobs today? Julie asked. You were all there last night, Max spluttered. You all agreed, remember? Joan said, we need meals with meat in them, and as if by magic, some arrived last night. Come on, who's up for being our butcher? He scanned around the doubtful faces looking at him. No one volunteered. Have any of you ever done anything like this before? Mac asked the room. Worked in a butcher's for a Saturday job. Worked on a farm. Rows of shaking heads looked back at him. Colin, what about you? You know very well I was a senior lecturer. For your last job, yes, but you could have done anything before, so far as I know. Why are you singling me out? There are plenty of others. I don't like you targeting me. He appealed around the room for support fruitlessly. I'm not targeting you, Colin, honest, but can't you see we need everybody to step up and learn to do things we never learned living our city lives? That sounds all well and good, but why me? I can't kill and butcher a living thing. I just can't. I'm happy doing the things I'm good at already. We all have to get our hands dirty. You too. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. Suppose I make a hash of it and the poor thing doesn't die. Suppose it starts thrashing around in pain and agony. Then that would be my fault, wouldn't it? And yours for making me do it. I'm not making anybody do anything, Colin. I'm asking you to try. For all of our sakes, if we are to survive and feed ourselves, someone's got to learn how to do it. But if you can't... Mac looked around the room, eyebrows raised imploringly. Come on, somebody, please. Anna raised her hand. I've never killed one, but I did help my dad butcher animals he brought home after hunting trips. I'm not saying I'd be any good, but... There you go, Max said, nodding with a beat that expression to Colin. We're not expecting professional quality, Anna, he reassured her. We'll be grateful for you just doing your best. You'll get better each time you do it. Anna looked doubtful, but nodded. But I can't kill it. Can one of you do that? She looked at Mac, Tomo and Half-Screw. Yep, all right, I'll cut its throat, Half-Screw answered, to shudders from around the room. We don't have to know how you're going to do it, objected Linda. Ugh, must you? Ashanti added. I won't be able to eat it now. I'll just feel too disgusted, Cynthia said, screwing her face up. I'll have yours then, Half-Screw scoffed. Mac waited for the protests to fade. The rest of us are going to go out to each of those farms to bring back all the useful things we found yesterday. Howls of protest came from half the group. What, all of us? We only made a dent in those jobs you gave us yesterday. How are we going to get them finished if you keep stopping and starting us? I've been talking to the 4 that went searching yesterday. They think if we use everybody, we'll get all the important finds brought back here with one full day's work. And why weren't we all included in that meeting? It's already getting like Animal Farm, said Colin. Some of you are more equal than us. What? Max said incredulously. Animal Farm? Are you serious? We'd never get any work done if we had meetings all the time. How could any of you possibly know better than them what they found and how to bring it back here? We're not going back to the 70s. sitting around arguing if we're an autonomous workers' collective or not, instead of working. Do I have to go back? Pet wheedled. Surely one girl less won't make a difference. What are you going to do instead? I'll carry on working in the workshop, like I was yesterday. Mac thought, and was quiet for a few seconds. Many hands make light work, remember? Pascal reminded him. It's not as though I can carry very much, not like you men, Pet said. Yeah, all right, Mac conceded. But when the others come back with their trailer loads, you must help them go and help them unload. Yes, Mac, Pet answered obediently, to a snort from Pascal. Mac turned to the others. Tomo and Ellen were already organising people into groups, some to walk to the nearer farms to prepare for the minibus and trailer's arrival, others to be dropped off at the farthest farms to gather all the salvage together. What about me then? Ashanti called out from behind him. When he turned, he saw her standing next to Pet. Remember, it was me and Pet cleaning out that outhouse yesterday, she said with indignation, her arms folded. And building workbenches and turning it into a workshop, Pet added quickly. Yes, that's what I meant. So it's not fair if she gets to stay behind and I don't, is it? She challenged. Come on, Mac, we're all waiting for you, Tomo called out from the driver's seat. Fine, Mac told Ashanti and walked to the minibus. Which way to the first farm? James called out as the minibus approached a crossroads. I think you turn left here, and when the road forks, we take the left one to the farm, Ali said. You think? James answered. Mac, can you read the map any better? No, keep off, Ali snatched the map away. I'm doing it. Do you remember when the 15 Marines sailed into Iraqi waters by mistake and were arrested? Tommy called out with a grin. There were 14 men and 1 woman. Guess which one was reading the map? Ha ha, Tomo, get stuffed, Ali snapped. I don't think it is this turning, Tomo called out, looking over Ali's shoulder. There should be 2 small buildings soon after the turn, and there aren't any. And that woodland looks further than a grid square away. I think our turn is further on. Will you mind your own business, Tomo? Ali turned around and glared at him. You'll be getting out at this first stop, and someone else has got to learn to navigate. You'd learn a lot quicker if you'd let me show you, he answered. Ali turned away from him with the map. Tomo sat back in his seat. Do it your way, then. They took the first turn. A mile or so further on, they pulled into a gravelled driveway. An imposing country house of golden stone sprawled behind an overgrown lawn. Red, tiled outhouses widened the buildings on both sides. Behind the house, and encircling the whole plot, were mature broadleaf trees, painting an impression of a country retreat for old money. This is the end of the road, and it isn't our farm, Tomo said with triumph. Did you check this place out yesterday, Ellen? Ali asked. No, never saw it. What about you two? She asked James and Jessie, who shook their heads. We turned off too soon, Columbus. You should have listened to me, Tomo said. Now we've wasted all that petrol and time. Turn around, James. Hang on, Ali paused. Shouldn't we check this place out now we're here? No, we bloody shouldn't, Tomo barked. There's already more than a day's work ahead, and we're running late. We already know there's fuel and guns and lots more at the farm we should be at by now. But now we're here, Ali continued. You never know. You're just trying to make up for your blunder. Tomo was loud and insistent now. Turn around, James. I know, I am. What's wrong with that? I told you it was the wrong turn. You should just admit you were wrong. Okay, I got it wrong, Ali said, sounding hurt. Did you never get something wrong? Chicks shouldn't be reading the map. Leave that to us who can do it properly. Stick to what you're already good at. Hang on, Tomo, Cynthia interrupted. She's just made a simple mistake. Leave her alone. She doesn't deserve all that abuse. Abuse? Who's abusing her? I'm just telling her. Don't you dare call me an abuser. I'm not having that. If I can't tell a woman she's screwed up without being accused... Ali burst into tears and threw open the door, running over to the house. She stopped at the front door. It was panelled with a walnut-coloured hardwood, with bold brass fittings set within an arched brick porch. She sat down on the step, her head in her hands. There was silence inside the minibus. "Aren't you going to go to her, Mac?" Linda prompted. "More wasted time," huffed Tomo, as Mac opened the door and walked over to her. Through the windscreen they watched Mac put his arm around Ali's shoulder, which she threw off. She shouted at him and cried some more. Tried again to put an arm around her, to which she moved a step away. They saw him throw his hands wide several times, then turn and walk back to the minibus in resignation. She got up, opened the elegantly weathered wooden door and went inside. "Linda, would you mind staying with Ali, please? She wants to check out the house and gardens and see what we can scavenge from here, so it isn't a wasted journey." "It's already a wasted..." Tomo began, but an elbow from Ellen silenced him. Cynthia turned and looked disapprovingly at him. "Correct. And we could have been on our way long ago if you hadn't had to humiliate her, for a silly mistake anyone could have made." She turned her back on Tomo to watch Linda set off across the gravel. Chapter 16. The minibus pulled away, gravel scrunching under its tyres. Some of the girls at the back waved goodbye at the women, but Linda wasn't looking back. Tomo leaned backwards, holding the map in front of the women on the back seat. "Look, does anyone else want to learn navigation? This is where we are now." "No way, Tomo," the women replied in unison. "Not until you work on your classroom technique," Cynthia finished. "Suit yourselves," Tomo said, turning his back and addressing Mac. "Carry on this way until the road, and then we go left for about 1 kilometre. "What's 1 kilometre in real money?" Mac asked over his shoulder. "About 2/3 of a mile, say, or 10 times the 100-metre sprint track if you ever did that." "Cross-country was my thing," Mac answered. "At school it was, anyway." "Can't you do it in miles for us?" "The map is in kilometres. Each square is 1k. It's the easiest way to learn map reading." "All right," Mac answered. Mac," Jessie answered. "We're getting dropped off in 4 places, aren't we?" "5 places now," Tomo corrected. "Yeah, all right, 5 places. Anyway, Mac, who's going to be in the different work parties for each drop-off?" "Why are you asking me again? I was in charge yesterday. Someone else can take a turn today. Otherwise, aren't we back in a dictatorship again?" Righto," Jessie said. Answered doubtfully. "Any takers?" she asked, looking around the packed minibus. "I'll be in charge of the team for the next farm. That's the one with the sheep, isn't it?" Cynthia said. "Who wants to come with me?" Julia said she would, and climbed off when they reached the farm. Anna, Maria and Tiggy were in the walking group that would join them there. Colin looked round at the remaining faces in the bus and decided to get off there too. "What are we doing exactly, Mac?" Cynthia asked before she closed the door. "Lots of things. Bringing back all the guns, ammunition, seeds, petrol and gas, anything we can use on our farm. And putting all the remaining sheep in a trailer we can drive them back in. You should be able to find a trailer somewhere around." He paused. "Hang on. You're asking me to tell you what to do again, aren't you?" "Yes, but you know how to organise us to get the best out of our numbers. We could waste a lot of time and effort if everyone just does the jobs they like the most." Mac pursed his lips. "I suppose you could be right. But then again, I'm not the only one who knows what to do. I'm not so big-headed I think nobody can do it better than me. Other people have skills too. Everyone has something to contribute. I don't want to make anybody feel excluded." "Yes, but..." "Oh, never mind." She closed the sliding door, but it didn't catch. "Damn it, I can never get the hang..." Her words were lost as the door slammed shut. "Next stop, Roach End Farm," Tomo sang out. "That's another one of our finds, eh, Ellen?" Yep, this is the one with all the vehicles. Hopefully you'll find one that's working or just needs a battery. Mac walked around the farm outhouses, reminding everyone to finish what they were doing, because in a few minutes they'd be setting off to start the drive back through the 3 other farms and the country houses. The evening wind had been blowing up dust and leaves for the past hour. Step by step, the red-streaked sky was losing light. He felt dissatisfied with the day, but couldn't work out why. They'd come to this farm because James and Jessie had reported it had gun cabinets, bottled gas, fuel and timber. They'd successfully found the lot, including the keys to the gun cabinets, and loaded them all into a trailer. On top of that, they'd scavenged boxes of ammunition for the shotguns and rifles, tinned and bottled food, and tools. "I wish it wasn't so far to our place," Bindi had remarked. "This workshop has everything we could possibly need, all set up already. Such a shame to have to dismantle it just to set it up again back home." "I'm regretting letting Pet and Ashanti stay behind," Matt admitted. "If they saw how it's set up, they could just copy it all in our outhouse." "Why not give me that job and put them on something else?" Bindi asked. "I've seen it. I can reproduce it easy." "I don't know, Bindi. They both chose that job and even argued with me this morning about staying back to complete it. That's how I really want us to work. If everyone chooses jobs that suit their strengths, they won't feel forced into doing something they find boring or unrewarding." "Whatever you say, Mac. I was just offering. I'll describe how it's set up to them when we get back." Mac closed the trailer's rear gate. He should feel pleased, he told himself, looking down at boxes of seeds, books and magazines, bikes, batteries, protective clothing and lengths of timber and metal for the workshop. They'd even found a working chainsaw. Pascal had walked around the perimeter, discovering the farm not only had a kitchen garden, but a small orchard. From the fruit decaying beneath the trees, she identified eating and cooking apples, pears and hazelnuts from the discarded shells squirrels had opened. There were other trees she couldn't identify. The kitchen garden was mostly weeds, but they found leeks, kale and Brussels sprouts, which they took to give to Joan. There were no potatoes left in the ground, just the green leaves scattered nearby. On her circuit, Pascal also noticed something else those working in the farmyard couldn't have spotted. The house was fitted with solar panels. She and Mac decided a future trip would be needed to dismantle the system and learn how it operated. They found bookshelves full of books and magazines on farming, preserving, smallholding, and a manual for the solar power system. "Look!" Pascal had shrieked in excitement, pulling books out of the stack. "A Provençal cookbook. Raymond Blanc's French cuisine. Magnifique!" Later, she became even more excited on finding a set of wine racks in the cellar and some wines from her closest region. "Mac, can we take these back with us? Surely we can find room in the minibus." "We don't have room for all of them. We'll have to come back another day. Pick half a dozen of your favourites and we'll all celebrate tonight." "Don't be ridiculous," Pascal had snapped, her eyebrows narrowing. "These are not for everyone. Imagine Julie drinking this." She thrust a bottle under his nose. "She cannot tell it from Lambrini or some supermarket cooking wine. They are to make a romantic night special." Her excitement had cooled along with her face. "If I can find a man worth having a romantic night with. Someone who will stand up and do what needs doing. Any suggestions?" She curdled. Mac noticed the same "your move" expression on her face that he'd seen before he escaped from Ricky. Wounded, he took a step back, feeling his face reddening. "Put it back then, and pick half a dozen ordinary ones instead. Or get Bindi to pick some Aussie plonk," he said before walking back outside. "Come on, everybody," Mac shouted, noticing the daylight had faded another degree. He climbed in the minibus and started it up. Pascal, Bindi and Lenny came running and got in. They arrived at the first farm and drew up in the open space in front. James and Jessie must have heard them approaching and were waiting. They pointed to a high trailer with wire mesh sides filled with gas bottles, clothing and tools. Tom and Alex and Ellen, came out of the farmhouse to stand by the trailer. "We might have a problem, Mac," Tomo began. "A good problem, though," he added, seeing Mac's face drop. "We loaded this trailer up, like we planned," he began. "We did, don't you mean?" Ellen said. "Jessie and me." "Looks like you packed exactly the same things in the one we already have," Pascal said through the open window, tight-lipped. "Yeah, well, we didn't know what you'd found, obviously," Half-Screw said. "And we figured we'd just attach it to the back of your trailer when you got here." "I hadn't thought about that, actually," Mac admitted. With all of us riding in it as well, that'll be a lot of weight. Probably too much. We'll have to make 2 trips back to the manor house." "Wait until you've heard us out," Tomo continued. "We got a petrol generator working. Took us most of the day, actually." "You mean we can have electricity?" Bindi asked. "Like for lighting the house, or maybe an electric kettle?" "Or for a hairdryer, or hot water for a shower," Pascal added. "Hold your horses," Tomo cautioned. "It's going to be for charging batteries and using it for the workshop. Hooking it up to the house is complicated. For me, anyway." "Resign yourself to carrying more buckets of hot water to the bathroom for the foreseeable future, Pascal," Bindi consoled, and stumbling upstairs in the dark. "We found a big box of candles," James told her. "They're in the trailer." "Anyway, the problem is this," Tomo interrupted. "We can't trail both the generator and this trailer behind the minibus. It'd be 3 times longer than the van. We should pick one and leave the other until tomorrow." "Sure," Mac agreed. "Which do you think it should be?" "Whatever you think best." "We'll leave the trailer. After all, it's mostly duplicated, like you said, Pascal." He paused for her to answer. She slid the window closed with a snap. "What else did you get done today?" Mac turned back to the group by the trailer. "Remember, we wanted the wood-burning stove dismantling and the setup behind it that heats the hot water cylinder." "Oh, yes. Sorry," Tomo said, sharing an embarrassed look with Half-Screw. "We forgot all about it. The generator took longer than I thought." Mac pursed his lips in disappointment. "But you did say you wanted us to choose jobs we enjoyed doing," Tomo replied quickly. "True, I did say that," Mac answered thoughtfully, looking between the trailer and the generator. "Did you manage anything more than these jobs?" "Be fair," Ellen and Jessie chipped in together, sounding hurt. "That trailer took a lot of work, Mac. We virtually emptied the larder and the cookbook shelves. Not to mention the cases of wine and beer," Jessie added. "And don't forget we all had to stop and cook us all lunch." Okay, I'm sorry," Mac said quickly. "I didn't mean you hadn't been working. I just hoped we'd get more done. Anyway, let's get the generator tied on the back. The others will be wondering where we've got to." Chapter 17. They set off for the next farm. After a short distance, the van started to slow. Gave a few jerks, then sped up a little before repeating the cycle. "She's not pulling properly," Max says. "Feels like we're not firing on all 4. "Do you think it's the generator?" Bindi asked. "I mean, the extra weight." "No, it's not that," James said from behind the wheel. "I can barely feel it behind me. It's not heavy enough to cause this. No, it's mechanical. Probably something electrical." The van juddered, nearly stalling, but caught again and carried on haltingly. The passengers muttered until they pulled into the next farm. The women had seen the lights approaching down the lane and were out in the yard waiting. Mac got out of the passenger seat and stretched. He noticed Maria and Anna pushing Cynthia forward. She walked slowly towards him, her face down and drawn. "What's up?" he asked, noticing the yard looked the same as when he'd driven away in the morning. "I'm sorry, Mac. We haven't got... where are the sheep? Haven't you got them loaded onto a trailer yet?" No, actually well, where are they, Cynthia? That was your main job today, along with finding some working vehicles. And there were 6 of you. I know, I'm sorry. They got away. The minibus was emptying as people got off to stretch their legs. They got away. Every single sheep. You couldn't even catch one, Half-Screw exclaimed. I'm sorry, Cynthia repeated. How far did they get? Pascal asked. Can we help catch some now? Cynthia burst into tears. The other women moved in to comfort her, some giving Mac accusing stares. No, they all ran away in different directions. We tried to follow some of them, even grabbed hold of 1 or 2, but they pulled away. Didn't they, Colin? That's right, Colin agreed. I couldn't keep hold of them, Mac. We realise now we had no idea to get them from the field into the trailer. You should never have even let us try. What? Mac spluttered. Let? Who's to let anybody do anything or stop them? Didn't I say I wanted someone else to do the organising today? You all volunteered for this job, didn't you? He eyed each one in turn. Heads found their shoes suddenly interesting. Some nodded agreement. And Cynthia wanted to be in charge, Half-Screw contributed. Not you, Colin. Colin ignored the barb and continued to address Mac. Somebody should have come up with a plan or something before we started. And then we could have all discussed the strengths and weaknesses of it, brainstormed it. Somebody should have, agreed Mac. The group leader, I'd say. Or maybe you, since you sound like you knew what to do. The sound of shoes scuffing the ground broke the silence as faces turned to look at Colin. And what about your second job? Finding some working vehicles. Any luck with that? Mac demanded, still looking at Colin. That's being sexist, which I am not. He drew himself up with pride. Eh? What is? Mac asked, puzzled, looking at me and asking about vehicles. You're assuming that's a man's job. Yes, it is, Half-Screw sneered, which rules you out. I've had just about enough of your comments, Colin retorted. You're just a thick squaddy. What do you know? I'll show you what I know, Half-Screw answered, icily, and taking 2 steps forward, punched Colin on the nose. Colin cried out in shock and stepped rapidly away from Half-Screw, who stood still. Ah! Ooh! Colin called out, bending forward, his hand over his nose. He stood back up for a moment and the van's lights showed blood dripping from his nose. He's broken my nose, Mac! He's broken my nose! No, I haven't, Half-Screw said. But if you're going to carry on whining about it... He took a step towards Colin who backed away. No, don't, he pleaded, his voice high and strained. Half-Screw stopped advancing. Colin stood up and looked around the group. Nobody had moved. Nobody stood up for him. You're an animal, he shouted, his voice shrill. You shouldn't even be one of us. How can we live and work with somebody like you? Discipline him, Mac. Show him he can't get away with that. Mac laughed, shaking his head. Right, Half-Screw, that's gross misconduct. Assaulting somebody in the workplace. You're sacked. Collect your P45 from Nicola, called out Bindi. Everybody laughed, some nervously. Yeah. And you, Colin and Cynthia, you're sacked too for losing the sheep. Put an advert in tomorrow's paper for some more workers, will you, Pascal? He turned to climb into the cab. I take it you didn't get any cars or quad bikes working? No, Cynthia answered, defeated. We didn't manage that either. The minibus backfired as Mac started it and juddered as he drove around the yard in a circle to face the way they'd come in. Tomo had taken the seat next to Mac. I think we'd have been better off if you or Half-Screw had been in on this job instead, he said softly. We'd probably have an extra working car or even a Land Rover. True. If this conks out, we would have still been able to get home. We'll definitely have to walk if it does. Walk home in the dark? Women's voices echoed from behind them as they pulled out of the farmyard. What if there's something out there? You can't be sure it's safe. Who knows what's lurking in the dark? There's certainly no people for miles around, Bindi said. All these farms are empty, and Britain doesn't have lions or bears. Maybe there are some ghosts, she said, and clapped her hands loudly, making Julie jump. Oh, don't! You made me jump right out of my seat, she shouted. There are big cats in the countryside anyway, black panthers. Probably lions too. I saw a programme on TV, Big Cat Britain. Perhaps there are, but they'd go for the sheep rather than us, Bindi said. The van struggled on for half a mile further, onto the tarmac road, then stalled. Mac spun the engines a few times, with no response. Damn, Mac cursed. That sounds terminal. What are we going to do now? Julie asked, sounding panicked. Other voices echoed her emotions. Mac, what are we going to do? She repeated when he didn't answer. Shut up, woman. Give him a chance to think, Tomo said. Julie started wailing in fright. Her breathing became heavy and fast. I can't, she spluttered. We can't. Her hands flew to her face, and she stood up and sat down several times, half making an attempt to get up. Oh no, she cried out. Spots of rain dotted the windscreen. Any ideas, anybody? Mac asked, reaching up and switching on the inner light, then turning around to look at everyone. No? All right. Two of you lasses, say Cynthia and Anna, you're closest, help Julie out of the bus and get her some fresh air. Did anybody put any torches or bike lamps in our trailer? You did, Carol. Great. You get out and find them. Tomo and Half-Screw, when Carol gives you a torch, can you check under the bonnet and see if you can work out what's wrong? Righto, Tomo said, shuffling along the seats to the door. James and Jessie, I want the mountain bikes that don't have punctures out of the trailer. There's at least 3 that were rideable. Hopefully more. We can't all ride back to the manor house. Are we going to have to walk? Jessie asked. It started raining. Shouldn't we spend the night here in the bus? Colin chipped in. It's too early to think about spending the night here. It's only been dark an hour or so. There are too many of us anyway. If we had some tents we could, but we didn't find any at our farm. We did. They're on the trailer we left at ours, Jessie said. They'll be wet through in an hour, she added ruefully. In 10 minutes, more like. Look, it's already getting heavier, Ellen added, and so will all the books. They'll all be ruined. All that work. And that manual for the solar panels. If only I'd wrapped it up in a plastic bag. Yes, that too. And the seeds will be soaked through. Oh yes, that reminds me, Max said. We packed some sheets of plastic in the trailer. There's loads of rope in here too. Alex and Bindi, can you tie it over the trailer to keep it dry? Ask someone to help you out, if 2's not enough. I'll help, suggested Tiggy, and got out with them. It's too far to walk all the way to the manor house, Max said to those working around the trailer. It must be 5 miles, and we're in the dark. We don't want to risk getting lost. Nah, give me a torch and the map. I could get us back easy, Half-Screw said. You could too, eh, Tomo? Tomo agreed. Oh, you could? Brilliant. That can be plan B then. For now, I'm going to take one person and cycle to the house where Ali and Linda are. That's the best bet for us to all stay the night in and keep dry. Do you still have some energy, Carol? Chapter 18. Mac and Carol had only travelled a few 100 yards from the minibus when lightning flashed off to the east. Half a minute later, Mac heard thunder rumble. Rain fell in sheets, soaking his hair and running down his back inside his clothes. Wind gusted into them, almost stopping their bikes dead. Another bolt of lightning split the sky much closer to them, and simultaneously they shuddered as a deafening thunderclap accompanied it. Mac climbed off his bike and took hold of Carol, making her dismount. It's right on top of us, he shouted over the screaming wind. Leave the bike there and come away from it. They walked away and squatted down by the hedge a few yards from the roadside. Leaves, sticks and small branches blew past them down the road. Mac waited until the lightning and thunder were half a minute apart. Both were soaked to the skin and shivering, despite the exertion, when they reached Ali and Linda. Large boughs had been broken off the roadside trees, while the thunderstorm had been directly above them. The clouds had hidden the moon, and they had to rely on the bicycle lamps to avoid riding into them, as well as into the ditches and hedges. Ali had noticed the weaving lights approaching the house and called out from the door to check if it was someone from her group. She hugged Mac as though he'd been gone a month and dragged him into the kitchen, where an Aga had filled the room with warmth. "Sorry for having a meltdown before. I probably ruined your plans for putting us into groups." "I ruined them myself," Mac admitted. "We only finished a fraction of what I'd hoped for. Tomorrow will be different. If I can actually get us back home, that is. But for tonight, can you get the bedroom sorted for us?" "To sleep here. Me and Carol will have to go back and bring the others here." "You're going to cycle back in this?" Ali protested. "Got to. The others don't know whether we're staying here or walking back to the manor house tonight." "Walking?" Ali asked. "The minibus died. We'll have to leave it on the road and take some tools out tomorrow and work on it." "So all our pickings will have to stay with it too? What a blow. Oh, Mac, after you'd made such a good start." "That's not even the half of it," Mac began, but was halted by a horn beeping. They rushed outside and saw the minibus trundling down the lane. It crossed the gravel drive and stopped. Excited but trying not to show it, Half-Screw and Tomo jumped out of the cab. "Sprayed some WD inside the distributor cap and gave it a little scrub," Half-Screw said with triumph. "Sounds like she's running just fine." The light from the tilly lamps showing through the kitchen window gave Mac a warm feeling of being welcomed back home as he climbed out of the driver's seat. They all walked into the manor house compound, carrying some of the food and wine from the day's scavenging. "We'll just take the food inside, otherwise pests will get at it," Mac had said. "Would some of you mind rolling the trailer and generator under cover?" Those that had raincoats shook them off in the cloakroom that the porch opened into. The rest took off most of their wet clothes and boots. "I'll run upstairs and bring you down some dry clothes, Mac," Ali said, leaving the cloakroom in her wet underwear. "I suppose I will have to get my own," Pascal muttered, pulling off her wet clothes and depositing them in the corner. As she walked out of the door, the men staring at her retreating rear received elbows from their women. "I just thought of another job," Mac laughed, "to get the drying room up and running again. This was a youth hostel once. Today won't be the last time we come inside soaked to the skin." He left the porch, returning with a pile of old newspapers, and began stuffing them inside his wet boots. "Get one of the women to do that," Half-Screw said. "Or Colin. It'll only take a minute." "You've got to get better at dishing out jobs, Mac," advised Bindi. "Yes. Some of the women have barely lifted a finger today, and I've twisted my back being underneath cars and lifting that generator," Half-Screw grumbled. "I'll do it," Cynthia said, pushing past them to reach the stack of boots and shoes. "I haven't been much use up until now." Mac looked down at her. "Get a few more from your team to help you do that, and hang up the clothes to drip somewhere. How about Julie and the Polish girls? Don't dump all this on yourself. We'll start afresh tomorrow." Mac was pulling on his dry clothes when Joan beckoned him to come to the kitchen. "Mac, may I have a word?" "Sit down here. Would you care for a cup of tea? I've been watching you these last 2 days." "Have you?" Mac sat down, deflated, watching me make a right royal hash of everything. But have you determined where you went wrong? And do you now know what you must do?" "Yeah, I think so." Mac repeated the conversation he'd had with Ali 2 days earlier about what they needed to do to turn the hostel into a self-sufficient farm. "And you were there for the discussion that night when I spoke to everyone." Those are all good ideas, Mac, but you've missed a few essentials and a few priorities. For a start, there's much more wild food out there in the woods that will keep us going until we're growing our own. Would you accept some advice? Not half. Anything you can teach me, please. We'll have a cup of the tea Ali brought back yesterday then. Joan poured them both a mug and listed some of the wild plants and fungi that they could be eating now it was spring. But I don't know what any of these look like, he said. You'll have to walk round the woods with me and show me. Not with you, Mac, Joan replied, shaking her head. You've got more than enough to do. I hope you know that. She paused, checking her words had sunk in. I recommend you assign one of the women to this job with an apprentice. Nicola would be good for it. I'll walk around the woods with them. A frown passed over her face, quickly replaced by a bright smile. A little too bright. What is it? Mac asked. Oh, Mac, there's so much I can't remember. So much I never even learned in the first place. She sat silently for a moment. Then her chin lifted. I don't know all we need, but not by a long chalk, but there'll be plenty of books and magazines to glean from. You don't suppose we've already got anybody who knows about it, do you? Knows about what, Joan? Running a small holding, nutrition, foraging, permaculture, everything like that. No, I'm afraid you're it, Joan. I asked everybody yesterday about their skills and knowledge. We've got too many city people, too many who worked in offices or with computers, and not enough with even a few practical skills. Thank goodness we've got Tomo and Halfscrew, who know about guns and machinery. I expect you'll find most of the men are practical, Joan said. They'll be able to turn their hands to most things, with the right encouragement, she said, nodding at Mac. When you send your teams out to search and scavenge, can you tell them to look for books and, well, anything about small farms, growing vegetables, seeds, keeping chickens, all those things I mentioned? Yeah, Mac agreed. And they can look for DIY manuals, anything that'll help us with electricity, Mac added, ticking off more ideas in his head. Great idea. Thanks, Joan, he said, draining his mug and heading upstairs. Chapter 19. Mac, Ali said, nudging him awake. Sorry, I know you haven't rested enough after yesterday, but they're waiting downstairs for you to organise them. And Pascal insisted you get up and do what you should have done yesterday, Pascal announced, bursting into the bedroom and sitting down on the opposite side of the bed to Ali. She leaned over Mac and moved his hands away from rubbing his eyes, her curls dangling over his face, and she kissed him deeply. I bet that has woken you up properly, she said, with assurance, running her hand down Mac's body and under the duvet to check for confirmation. I was right. But that is all you are getting. With one agile move, she bounced up from her kneeling position and landed, seated on Mac's chest, bringing an oof from him. Careful, Ali protested. Don't injure him, you silly French. Mac sat up quickly, grabbing Pascal around the waist and spun her over, planting her on his lap. My turn, he said, raising his palm above her backside. But she rolled down his legs and off, out of his reach, bowling Ali off the bed as she did. It will take a man to do that to me, she pouted at him from the door, and I'm still looking for one. She continued on to the landing. Et voila, he is on his way, he heard her shout down the stairs. I'll never treat you like that, honey, Ali said, and I'll never refuse you. Mac pulled on his work boots and walked outside, where everyone was seated around or on the picnic tables and chairs outside the kitchen door. The storm had moved on during the night to buffet somewhere else, but the sky suggested more rain might yet fall on them. Bindi and Anna walked over from the latrine they'd been digging. Cynthia and Julie left their wheelbarrow full of logs to walk over to him. "Thanks for waiting," he told them. "We didn't have any choice," Cynthia said. "Pascal wouldn't let us get started without hearing from you first." "Not that we knew what to do today anyway," Colin said. "Good for her," Max said approvingly. "I was thinking about what I should have done better yesterday before I could fall asleep. Sorry for making a hash of it. I'll try not to." "Are you referring to your not stopping Half-Screw from punching me and thereby breaching our peaceful principles?" Colin asked. "No, that isn't what I mean, Colin. And if you can't understand—" "Forget him," Pascal interrupted from beside him. "Organize the workers." "Right," Mac agreed. Ignoring Colin's huffing, he divided the group into parties of 2, 3, and 4, putting leaders with beginners. "As you can see, there are some leftover jobs we didn't finish at the farms yesterday that I'm sending teams out to. Finding us another working vehicle is a priority, obviously. We learned that yesterday evening. Scavenging fuel for the Land Rover we came in here is in another." He continued assigning tasks until all the most pressing needs were addressed. "And these are the responsibilities each team must also fit into their day, as your leader sees fit. Things like moving the sheep around and keeping the firewood topped up near the stoves. Tonight we'll talk about how today went. Perhaps some tweaking will be needed, but let's get started right away." Mac left the group and caught up with Jessie as she was climbing onto the minibus, about to drive back out to yesterday's farms. "Jessie, you mentioned cookbooks in your trailer load from yesterday." "They'll all have been ruined by the rain," she said, shrugging. "I know, but were there any farming and small holding books in the load? And did you notice any magazines about wild foods and foraging? And I wasn't looking for anything like that, Mac. You never said to. From now on, bring us anything like that back. We don't have anybody to teach us this stuff. We've got to read about it. I need a volunteer to be the main forager. What about you?" "Forager? What's that?" "Joan will teach you." Over the next 10 days, Mac's vision for the farm made giant strides. Cynthia insisted on being part of a group sent out to find the lost sheep, of which they recovered 12. Tomo and Ellen built a blockboard floor in a trailer, which transported the remaining sheep back. They cannibalised 2 Land Rovers to make one working vehicle and worked on a quad bike until it started and ran. Carol and Bindi cycled out one evening towing a cart, carrying a charged battery behind them, and returned in a hatchback from the nearest farm. The next day, they drove to each of the farmhouses they'd searched and brought back everything of value. Joan's pantry was filled again. Another working party built a petrol, oil and gas store outside the perimeter wall and a hard standing for the extra vehicles. Half-Screw and Lenny charged up dozens of car and tractor batteries using the generator. They found that one workshop wasn't enough and chose the hostel's former cycle store to build the new one in. All the tools and equipment scavenged from the abandoned farms were stacked inside, ready for its transformation. Max shielded his eyes from the spring morning sunshine and reached for a hammer. "Hold that stake still, will you, Ali?" he asked, nailing it to the bottom of the raised bed. "Yeah, it's like that. Now do the same on the opposite side." Ali picked up another stake and held it in place for him to fix. "Once these are done, someone can attach the cords to the top and bottom and then put in the baby plants for them to climb up. Who did I give that job to? Oh, yes, Alex and Tiggy, of course." "What are we going to grow in here?" Ali asked. "All sorts. Tomatoes, peas and beans, cucumbers going up the trellises, roots and other stuff in the main bed. These are going to crop all summer. We'll have some more planted when these start to ease off." He looked up from the raised bed to see Alex walking to them from the outhouses. His face was red with frustration. "Mac, sorry to bother you, but the girls aren't even in the workshop, and I can't even start my next job without a spade and a fork." They said they'd have the handles mended, but they're still lying on the workbench, still broken. And Colin's team can't start planting out until you've finished double digging the raised beds, right? That's right, Alex sighed. I saw Pet walking over to the wood stack earlier. Julie and Cynthia were sawing logs there. You've held up 3 jobs by not doing what I told you, Max snapped at Pet. I can't even see why you came over here. They don't need you. There's already 2 working here. So she could gossip with Julie about babies or men or something, Cynthia chipped in. I wasn't listening closely, but that's what it sounded like. Cynthia, protested Julie. We haven't got any wood sawn since she arrived, Cynthia reminded Julie. 4 jobs, exclaimed Mac. I don't do this organising for pleasure, you know. We all depend on each other to do what we're supposed. All right, Pet held up her hands. I'm sorry, all right, if I held up any of your silly working parties. I'll go back now. Okay? Happy now? She wandered towards the outhouses, but stopped halfway, turning back to have the last word. Ashanti went off to the toilet half an hour ago and never came back. She was supposed to mend one while I did the other. That doesn't mean you can slope off as well. I'll have a word with her when I see her. Mac turned and walked back to the raised beds in front of the east section of boundary wall.